Hey everybody, welcome. I've got a couple things I want to talk about today, primarily why I'm sick of dealing with car dealerships, specifically trying to get maintenance done at a car dealership. And as a car enthusiast, I want to be more DIY, right? I've done some basic maintenance, but I don't have a huge mechanical background. So that's why I've always entrusted dealerships to figure things out when I kind of hit my wit's end. Now, I want to start out by saying I'm not here trying to bash my local dealership, right? I've had issues with this dealerships in previous towns I've lived in. It's just kind of the nature of the beast. But I do want to explain why I think, at least for me, as someone more interested in DIY and improving my own skills, where I think I don't see that dealerships are offering the same kind of value maybe they used to. So quick story. As some of you may know, I currently drive a 2014 Ford Raptor. Now, this is the first generation of Raptor. I've had it for a few years now, and large in part, it's been very trouble-free. It's got 117,000 miles on it, and realistically, other than a few little electronic parts going out, I've had no issues with it. But more recently, issues started popping up more often. It started off with my rear driver's side door lock. It just stopped working. All of a sudden, couldn't unlock that door with the key fob or the door controls. The only way you could get it open was to reach in the back seat and physically pull up the rod to unlock that door. So I looked up some quick YouTube videos and found that common failure points are those door actuators. So I got on Rock Auto, ordered some parts, and replaced it. This solved the problem for best case, maybe a day or so. And then I started having the same issue all over again. Now, in this case, I knew now it wasn't actually the actuator. Something else was going on. My biggest worry was it was going to be something electrical, and that's an area that I really don't have much expertise in. So I figured I'm probably going to need to take this thing to the dealership to get it figured out. Now, at the same time, my backup camera started having issues. Now, the truck's had issues with this backup camera multiple times before, but it was never a steady issue. It would happen once every other month or so. But over the last few weeks, that issue really started raising its head a lot more often. Sometimes I would see the camera feed was not inverted, but it was flipped long ways. And this would cause a lot of weird problems because honestly, like driving a truck like a Raptor, you get very used to using the backup camera when you're trying to squeeze into tiny little spaces. These are very wide trucks after all. But if your camera gets flipped around when you're trying to back up, it can be very I'll say it was disorienting trying to back up when the camera just screwed up, right? So I didn't know what was going on. I checked common fuses. Couldn't find any major issues. So again, I was starting to think that I might need to take this to a dealership to get it sorted out. Now, where this story really kicks off is I also recently got in the mail a recall notice for some transmission work that needed to be done to my truck. So I call them to schedule an appointment. Now, the initial frustration starts off basically because it took more than a week to get an appointment. Now, that's not unheard of. Honestly, that's probably pretty standard. But when I was on the phone with the service representatives, they also asked about anything else going on with the truck. So I told them the more recent issues I've been having with the door locks and the backup camera. And they said that, they could get me in on this one appointment to get the transmission recall squared away, but I'd have to set up separate appointments for the other issues. And I told them that was fine. So fast forward about a week, right? I'm there dropping off my truck first thing in the morning. I had an appointment time set. We start talking about the recall, and that's what my primary reason for the visit. But then the service reps there start asking again more about the door lock issue and the rear backup camera issue I was having. And I told them all the issues I was having, but I was like, hey, my primary purpose for this visit, I need to get the recall squared away. But they kind of made it seem like, they would have time, they could get to those other issues. So I was like, cool. I figured, hey, small victories, right? Wrong. But I dropped my truck off. They offered to give me a ride home. I think everything good to go, right? Hours go by, I hear nothing. Later that afternoon, I'm starting to get a little nervous. I know they had a lot they wanted to look at on the truck. So I give them a call back to see if it's still going to be ready to be picked up. But no. So when I talked to the service rep that afternoon, I find out They haven't even looked at my truck yet. And at this point, the first thing that pops into my mind is, why did I even set up an appointment if there was no one available to even look at it? But again, I've never worked in this kind of business, so I'm not going to sit there and just lose my cool over every little inconvenience. So I'm like, okay, what's the next steps? So talking to the service rep again, he tells me that my car has one other car ahead of it. They've got their master technician scheduled to look at it, and that if I could leave it with them, that their master tech would be able to look at it the next day. So I reluctantly agree, but I still ask them, what about the transmission recall? Did that part get done? They were like, no. Okay, whatever, they're busy. I'm just going to move on. Moving on to day 2. I figure I'll give them a few hours, right? Maybe I'll call them a little after lunchtime because I know they still had another car ahead of mine, so I wasn't expecting my truck to get seen first thing in the morning. So I wait. I give the dealership a call again early afternoon. Mind you, not once have they called me. Every time I've talked to them, I have to call them. So I give them a call back, and I ask them, what's the status update? I was like, has the recall been done? And again, they say no. The only thing that's actually been done so far is the technician did some diagnostic work on the backup camera. And he was saying that they could order some parts, but they didn't have everything in stock. Some stuff would have to get delivered the next day on Saturday. So I was like, okay, that's frustrating. But again, backup camera wasn't the biggest worry I had right now. I wanted to get that recall squared away. This is when they also told me that they needed to get approval for more diagnostic time before the technician could look into the rear door lock issue, saying they were going to need like 2 hours to tear this thing apart and really figure out what was going on. This is one of those situations where I really felt like I was starting to get the runaround. They were asking for hundreds of dollars extra in billable hours to look into this issue. And I didn't really think about it until after the fact. I don't think I've ever had a dealership charge me more than a single diagnostic fee for any given issue. Now, I get if you want to charge multiple diagnostic fees for multiple issues, fine, right? But they were trying to charge me the just regular billable rate for their technician, which these days I feel like has gotten really astronomical because I have a hard time believing they're giving their technicians much of that money. But again, I just kept getting this news. I kept getting frustrated. I was trying to hold my composure. So I told them, I was like, what's the plan now? I was like, I need my truck. At that point, I was ready to come get my truck that day. But they hadn't done the recall notice yet. So I was like, okay. I was like, fine. Tomorrow's Saturday. I know y'all are still open for a few hours. The service rep said he wouldn't be there, but he would leave notes for whoever is there that there should be some parts coming in and they could get those issues taken care of. So I was under the impression that that master technician was planning to work that Saturday. Fast forward again. Next day, I give him a few hours in the morning. I call sometime after lunch. I talk to yet another service rep. I get someone different every single time I call. And she tells me that that master technician assigned to my vehicle is not there, was not scheduled to work there, and neither is the service rep. Now, I knew the rep wasn't going to be there, but he made it sound like the technician would be there. Someone would be there that could finish installing the parts and get my truck squared away. That was a complete lie. So not only are we on day 3 of my truck going nowhere, not a single piece of that service has really been done other than a little diagnostic work on the camera. So when this initial service rep tells me my truck hasn't even been touched, I'm basically livid. Again, I keep my composure. I don't take it out on her. She's the one that actually suggests that I should talk to a manager. She takes my information down, tells me a manager will give me a call back. 1 hour and 15 minutes goes by, and I still haven't heard anything from this guy. So I call him back. And again, I get a different service rep. I tell him the same story, like, hey, I've just been waiting for over an hour. Where's this manager? He's like, okay, let me take your number down again. I have to go find him. So I give him his number. I wait, thinking no more than 5 minutes. I'll be hearing from this manager. 45 minutes goes by. Still haven't heard anything. I'm really starting to get suspicious of this dealership that, they have my vehicle torn apart in a bay somewhere. They just don't want to tell me, or something's going on that they're not trying to tell me. I started getting the plan together that, hey, I'm going to have to call an Uber. And I'm just going to have to go and show up at this dealership and make a scene just to get some freaking answers. Any communication. That's all I wanted. But luckily, before I made any poor decisions like that, I did finally get a call from the manager. And annoyingly, he really doesn't have any kind of answers on hand. So I tell him the story again. I explain to him point blank, again, professionally, that I'm very much not happy with the experience. I don't know what's going on. I feel like the communication has been extremely poor and I need my truck back. So he goes and does some digging. Unfortunately, since there were a few notes and the service hadn't been completed yet, the service technician's notes were very lackluster, so he couldn't tell what had or had not been done yet. And he told me that the camera parts did not show up, and they would not show up until Monday now. So after we talked for a while, he's trying to calm me down. I'm trying to better understand what's going on. Like, why has it been 2 to 3 days? He says that's a normal kind of thing when they have diagnostic work to do and multiple issues and all that, which to some degree I think is a little ridiculous, but on the other hand, that's fine. It just needs to be communicated. And it was not. I told him, I was like, I cannot wait till Monday. I have a job to get to. I've already wasted enough vacation time. I need my vehicle. So luckily he was able to square things away. He found the shop foreman and got them to take care of the transmission service. He insisted they could still have me come back Monday and get things squared away. But I told him realistically at this point, I don't think I want them touching my vehicle anymore. I don't want to do business with someone that can't get the simple basics of communication down. I was also very mad that it took me more than 2 hours to get a hold of this manager, and the day, again, was coming to a close. So I needed some action now. So he was able to get a driver to come out, pick me up. They got that transmission service done, and I was able to take my truck back. I'm sick of having to wait weeks at a time just to even get a vehicle into the shop. I'm sick of relying on the people that should be experts in this truck to accurately diagnose and service a vehicle in a timely fashion. And I'm sick of the management that can't seem to fulfill the basics of communication when it comes to any sort of business transaction. And again, I want to clarify, I'm not here to bash the actual service technician themselves. My frustration is not with them. I know that career field is hurting. It's hard to keep people in it. In this case, it's more the management that I'm frustrated with. The fact that it took 3 days to get a 20-minute service done is completely unacceptable in my book. But at the end of the day, I got my truck back. That's what I wanted. But it did force me to reflect on previous issues I had. Now, while I was going through this, I was thinking back, I was like, trying not to let this sour my experience with this dealership because I've taken my truck to them many times and never had any issue like this before. But that's when I realized the only work they've done on my truck prior to this was simple things like oil changes, brake jobs, maybe putting a new battery in it. And honestly, I just kind of came to the conclusion that this dealership, they probably don't have enough service technicians. Ultimately, this most recent bad experience just came down to poor communication. And had it been made apparent to me that getting those other things looked at was going to take 2, 3, 4 days, I just wouldn't have done it. I would have told them strictly to look at the recall notice, and I would have kept working on those issues myself. So that brings me back to the crux of this video. If you have a vehicle, regardless of whether you're an enthusiast or not, if you have a vehicle and you have some space, I highly encourage you to start doing as much maintenance on it yourself as you can. At the very least, make sure you know how to do oil changes, how to change a battery, how to check your brakes, how to check your tread depth, things like that. All those basic services are very easy for you to do at home. If you're a car enthusiast like me, I highly suggest learning to do more of this diagnostic kind of work. Because honestly, these days, the way things are going, finding a good mechanic and a good dealership or a good shop, it seems to be getting harder year by year. So I think now's the time to start developing those skills yourself. And I recognize not everyone has any desire to work on their vehicle at all. And that's totally okay. But even if you don't want to turn any wrenches yourself, I highly suggest you learn to do some research, find the good resources for your vehicle, either repair manuals, online forums, YouTube channels, anything you can. So if you do start having issues, you can help identify what the problem is and prevent yourself from getting strung along for days and weeks at a time, like I have. All right, y'all, that's going to wrap this up for this video. Tell me in the comments, what kind of dealership nightmares have you had? Or even better, tell me about a good experience you had. If you like this video, subscribe, hit that thumbs up button, hit the little bell icon, and we'll see you in the next one.